It says this meeting is being
That's
recorded.
right. By
I
continuing the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded, all right?
I did. It was a good trip and a long trip. Their name streets. Yeah.
So you're the contact.
Yeah. Yeah. Not, okay.
Really?
And the people are so friendly.
We're now live streaming.
How many members are on the ministry?
14.
6 or 14?
Oh, not on this one. There's
Yeah, I
3.
never
That's
see
weird.
that many.
And they always have to recruit somebody. Put them
I
on.
hate to admit this, but I don't have an agenda for the administration committee meeting. How was that distributed? Where should I look?
We can send it again. We can send it again. Is it attached to the invite?
Is it?
We'll send it
Oh.
again.
Okay. Or tell me where it would be.
Marcia will have to.
Well, you could start with the roll call.
Do I have it?
I've looked in all of the logical email places for it. And I apologize, but I don't have it.
Okay, just hang on. Marcia's send it to you.
Yeah, I don't understand, but I don't have it.
Karen, can you hear me from where I'm sitting?
Yes.
Okay, great. I got it. Got it. Kelly's gonna email Ryan. Ryan is emailing it to you.
That
Is Dave here again?
No, he's not attending this meeting tonight.
How about Frank? I'm just trying to see if we have our.
Am I unmuted? Am I?
Mr. Vitale here, he did say he was going to attend, but we weren't sure if he
How
meant
do I know
this
that?
meeting and the board meeting or just the board meeting.
Okay. So when we do call to order, I may need to solicit Jeff or Marvin to be our third. Okay. And I'm sorry, did you email? Here we go. Got it. Okay, so there is a resolution. All right, ready? Are we good?
Yes. Would you like
So
me to?
we'll call to order at 6:33. The administration committee meeting. With a roll call.
Ms. Wise,
Present.
Mr. Brockett,
Richard Brockett, Northern Portage.
Ms. Beck,
President Kent City.
Mr. Childers,
Southern Portage County.
Mr. Woods,
Marvin Woods, Streetsboro.
Ms. Amrine,
Claudia Amrine, Parta.
Marcia Fletcher, Parta, Ms. Jurish,
Kelly Jurish, Parta.
Mr. Markey,
Justin Markey, Red Zone Andress.
Mr. Popick,
Clayton Popick, Parta.
Ms. Schrader,
Rebecca Schrader, Parta.
Mr. Troutman.
Brian Troutman, Parta.
To establish the quorum needed, could Mr. Woods serve as our, could we appoint him this evening to be our third committee member?
Can you make it louder?
You don't need to have a third member, just so you have a forum.
We don't need a third?
No. As long as you have two.
All right.
Although I think Mr. Woods would do a great job.
Whoever's talking, I can't hear you.
I think Mr. Woods would do a great job, however.
Okay. So guest communications? Is there any old business? So moving on to new business, we have the consideration of nominations for board officers. We have 3 open positions: president, vice president, temporary presiding officer. All 3 positions are, the people in each of those positions are willing to continue on. Marcia, is there any new information? No one has contacted me with interest. Have you received any new inquiries or nominations?
I have not.
So then it would appear that Mr. Ginn would be, hold the nomination, I guess, for the next year for president, Mike for vice president, and me for temporary presiding officer. Is there anything further that the administration committee needs to do with the nominations?
Are you wanting to move forward?
Well, I'm not sure. So do we need to make as a committee, what are we doing with this? As it goes to the larger board meeting this evening? Are we just presenting this slate of officers to the board?
I would make a motion to. I would make a motion to move that slate forward to the board meeting this evening.
Okay. Can I ask for a motion to approve that slate of officers to the board meeting?
I move that the slate of officers spoken by the administrative committee be moved forward to the entire board.
Is there a second? Got to have a second, right?
Yeah, you'll probably have to second that motion.
All right, I'll second it. And then, do we need to do a roll call on that?
Yeah, voice vote would be fine.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll take that slate of officers to the board. We'll move on to the resolution. There's just one resolution before us. Number 2021-06-01, a resolution by the PARTA Board of Trustees authorizing the general manager or her designee to negotiate, enter into, and sign an agreement with Metis Construction Services for the construction of a fitness studio, mezzanine exercise room, and storage space in the bus storage facility. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution to the PARTA board? Mr. Brockett?
Piercy's muted.
Mr. Brockett, you're muted.
Is he affirming? I can't see him either.
You can raise his hand.
Can I assume that he made a motion to approve the resolution?
I agree. I would ask him to raise his hand if he agrees with the motion.
Mr. Brockett, can you affirm?
Yeah.
Mr. Brockett, we can't hear you. You may be on mute.
I don't know why.
Can anyone else make a motion? Can I make my own motion?
It looks like he's unmuted. Yeah. Oh, it's still muted on the bottom. Oh.
Maybe if you ask him again to raise his hand, he'll hear you and you could do it that way.
There we go.
Yay.
All right. Can you hear us now?
I am now unmuted.
All right. Mr.
And
Brockett,
now I
can we
can
have
actually hear you.
a motion to approve the resolution to the PARTA board?
You want me to make one?
Please.
I move that the first resolution be moved to the PARTA board.
All right, I'll second it. Is there a comment or presentation by PARTA staff for this resolution?
Just as I explained in the board report, this is a resolution to allow us to award a contract to Metis Construction for the build of the bus storage building we've been talking about for a while. And we did conduct an IFB, a procurement for using the invitation for bid process, and received 4 bidders. And throughout the process, working with our team at Bowen Architects and Engineering Firm, determined that Metis provided the lowest, most responsive and responsible bid. And so we would request that the admin committee move this forward for full board consideration.
Did I hear you say that Bowen advised or Bowen designed, or both?
So Bowen is the architecture and engineering firm that we put on contract for
Right.
our projects. So they designed the build out and then helped, as we put it out for bid, to review the proposed plans, and they will continue working alongside us as the build out is actually constructed to ensure that it's built to spec and to code and in accordance with what they proposed and all for the budget that we are asking for. I think it's $400,000.
And you received 4 bids and Metis was your best bid, lowest bid, best and lowest?
Best the most lowest, most responsive and responsible, meaning that they're the lowest and they meet the specifications and they're qualified to perform the work.
Are there any questions from the committee members or board members present at large for Claudia? So all in favor of the resolution, say yes.
Yes,
Yes. Any opposed? So we'll move resolution 2021. Oh, hang on. 2021-06-01 to the official board later this evening.
Thank you.
There's no need for an executive session. Any other comments before we adjourn?
the second resolution has been canceled temporarily.
No, the committee reviewed the resolution 02.
I don't follow. We reviewed resolution 01.
You reviewed
Yes, the exercise.
Yes, so admin committee is reviewing 01.
Right?
This committee on Tuesday reviewed 02.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is the only resolution before the administration committee.
Okay. So do you want to adjourn?
Yeah, we can move to adjourn. Is there a motion?
I move that the administrative committee adjourn.
I'll second, and we'll adjourn at 6:45 p.m.
You can just stay on and this will just roll into the board meeting.
I didn't hear that.
I said you can just stay on this link that you're already logged in, and the next board meeting will just happen and you will arrive.
Yeah, watch you step up here. Step up here.
Really see us way back here now.
They can hear us though. Blame the lawyer. Blame the lawyer.
I didn't hear. Did you hear about the second resolution? We were supposed to review the second resolution also, according to. That. So we sit now and we wait. Maybe I should try to take them up. Click now. I got a part that would blue the sky. That takes me that much time to do my thing.
Let me get this straight. When you have to go to the bathroom, to get yourself up on your feet and moving is very painful, right?
Really, it's just an effort.
Hmm?
So who's presiding over the board meeting?
Jim must not be there.
Okay, Mike Lewis.
You really would have cut out there. So we.
Yeah, what? Not you? You didn't know?
So are we pretty sure we're not gonna do mixed meetings then the rest of the year?
Question.
I just unmuted you. Yeah, we'll talk about that during the board meeting, but as of today, and this could change, as of today, we won't be permitted to meet remotely in July. That could change. It'd just be right.
We'd have to change this format to make it work.
I'm sorry, Sable? Yep. What kind of stuff right tonight? I couldn't hear you, Karen.
We'd have to change this format to make it work. I'm pretty good at this and I can't make it work. I can't hear the room and it's too hard to be the outsider when the majority is in the room.
I would agree, that makes it very difficult.
Yeah, we'd have to change our setup, our AV moving forward. I mean, once is fine, but if I had to do it 6 more
Yes,
times.
so we don't think we're going to be able to continue this way. We think we're going to have to go back to live completely unless the legislators change their minds about that. We offered this, we didn't intend to offer it remotely tonight. It was kind of a last minute decision.
Right.
One, so that Mr. Brockett could participate, and Virginia also requested remote if possible. So we just made this up. We didn't know how it was going to work.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the concept. It would allow me to participate even when I'm traveling, but it's hard to hear.
Sure.
Did we have this for dinner last
Uh, no, that's not before. I'd like to have that tomorrow night. What do you do? I like vegetable soup. I like soup too. We're a chatty group. Mysterious. Mysterious. You take some Pepto-Bismol?
Yeah.
You any good?
Yeah.
Right. Don't know who that guy is.
It's May 24th and 26th.
I think it's the 24th or 3rd.
There. Don't forget to miss Frank.
On second thought, don't worry. You may not know. Marge, oh, thank you. The last time I saw you was before we went on.
All right. Marcia, are you ready? You're live and right?
Yeah, I think I might do.
Okay, if everybody's ready, we will call the board meeting to order.
Thank you.
Settle in, new setup that we have here. All right, so welcome to the board meeting for PARTA for June 24th. We have a start time of 7 o'clock. We will start with the roll call, Marcia, please.
Ms. Beck,
Kent City present.
Ms. Biergard, Mr. Brockett,
Here,
Mr. Childers,
Jeff Chowder, Southern Portage County.
Ms. Davison,
Debbie Davison, City of Ravenna.
Mr. Lewis,
Michael Lewis, Ravenna Township.
Mr. Mansfield,
R.T. Mansfield, Franklin Township.
Ms. Tipton, Mr. Vitale, Ms. Wise,
Karen Wise, City of Ravenna.
Mr. Woods,
Marvin Woods, Streetsboro.
Mr. Markey,
Justin Markey, Redstone Andrews.
Ms. Amorine,
Claudia Amrine, PARTA.
Ms. Baba,
Here.
Marcia Fletcher, Parta, Ms. Jurish,
Ellie Jurish, PARTA.
Mr. Popick,
Clayton Popick, PARTA.
Ms. Schrader,
Rebecca Schrader, PARTA.
Mr. Troutman,
Ryan Trotman, PARTA. You got it.
Thank you very much, Marcia. I guess we'll start by saying welcome back, everybody, to a certain extent, face-to-face in the room, and thank PARTA for putting together the team. I'm not sure who to actually thank for putting together the streaming, so we allow other people to join us online today. We'll talk later about how that's going to change moving forward. So hopefully everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from the May 27th meeting. And at this time, I would like a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you very much. So we have a first and a second. Did we get both of those, Marcia?
No.
So we had Karen
Okay.
and March. Yep. All right. So I have a first and second. Can I ask for all in favor? Please signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda tonight, we have guest communications. We have any that we know of? Very good. Number 4, everybody hopefully had a chance to review Claudia's report that she sent out. It was very nice. And if there are any questions or if Claudia has anything she'd like to say at this time.
No, thank you. I think I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I will have a brief presentation later to go over where we're at with the RLB Phoenix contract. And can everybody hear me from here? Karen? And,
Yeah.
okay,
Why don't you let me move that a little closer?
well, during the I'll do the presentation from up there.
All right. Yes, Frank, please.
Are we going to talk a little bit about the employment situation?
We can definitely talk about that. Been definitely in the news a little bit, and we've talked about it. Claudia, go ahead. Where do I start, right? And
do you have a specific question?
Well, I was looking at the report. It certainly has a lot of information about where we're at as far as increased ridership and comment that you made about trying to give our current employees some time off for all the hard work they've done during the COVID crisis. With the information and concern about all these ability to find drivers. I mean, what's the plan? I saw it in your handout.
Well, the plan is pretty much what I laid out in the board report. We're trying to relieve some of the pressure on our current workforce who has worked continually and without, in many cases, any time off for months. They've been under mandatory overtime. We've been backfilling with other staff members who are qualified to drive. When people get sick, when people have child issues, when people have parent issues, all of the normal things that happen to everybody else happen to our workforce too. During the pandemic, drivers did leave. Some didn't want to continue. You can't hire during a pandemic because you can't bring anyone in. And the students from Kent State left. So we're at a point now where the only thing we can do to keep our current employees from burning out or leaving is to put fewer buses on the road, which is what we're doing. And as we move forward, we're going to try, as we look at our wage structure and look at how the economy is reopening in this area, we will look to be as competitive as possible with other service industries.
So what kind of feedback, I mean, there's got to be some people that want, I mean, is the starting wage $18 an hour, or what is that?
Have you driven around anywhere lately and looked at all of the help wanted signs that are out?
I know, I'm saying it, I understand. But I'm
So-
saying, what is your experience, and how does your wage compare with working at Harbor Freight, which is $14 an hour, which sounds high for Harbor Freight, but what is the starting wage, and what do we offer in the way of benefits? I would think it could be competitive, and I'm just asking.
We have a competitive wage. Again, we're looking at everything right now. We're offering bonuses right now to our current employees. And we are looking at our wages to adjust them appropriately so that we will remain competitive in the service industry. Now, the fact is, many people don't want to be drug tested or background checked or come to work on time. All the things that we require. So right now, we're pretty much looking for anyone with a pulse who will work. I hate to say it that way, but that's the fact. And I don't have the answers, but we are going to be focusing on, as we bring our trolleys on board, generating some excitement about that and some assistance for local community economies opening up. And I believe that that will be a very attractive feature. So we're going to come back okay. I just can't tell you exactly how it's going to look.
With things like offering the young person, young 22-year-old person who's not on drugs, that, you know, to consider that we would help support his further education. We got Kent State. When they're back. I mean, something that,
We have a full benefit package that I don't think we can go into right now,
no,
but we offer a great benefit package for our county and our campus drivers. Mhm.
It's definitely something that's, something we're gonna have to figure out how to deal with, but as you, like Claudia alluded to, you drive around, and everybody's saying they're not paying enough. Well, I see signs out starting at $24 an hour, and they're still looking for help. You see your point, paying $20, you get, you know. I don't know what the answer is. Hopefully we'll have a workforce that starts coming back, and it'll just help everybody, because we went to, my wife and I, side note, went to Cracker Barrel last night on the way home and stopped, and there were 7 cars in the parking lot. We walked in, and the lady there said that it'd be 45 minutes to an hour at least. And I said, my face must have looked a little surprised, and she said, I have 2 servers, that's all I have right now. So, you know, this is something we're dealing with across a lot of different businesses. So. But thank you for the question, and Claudia, thank you. Do you have anything else on the report? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move to the committee reports. And administration committee met earlier today. And Karen, let's get the report, please.
Thanks, Mike. 2 items of business for the administration committee. The first was the nominations for our 3 officer positions, the president, vice president, temporary presiding officer. The administration committee has been soliciting nominations over the past 2 to 3 months now. And we did make a motion to approve to the board Dave Ginn to continue as president, Mike Lewis as vice president, and myself as the temporary presiding officer. So that was the first order of business. The second was resolution 2021-0601, permission to the board to approve and enter into a contract with Metis Construction for a fitness studio. They were the best, lowest, most responsive bid, and we did approve that resolution to the board. Our meeting concluded at 6:45 PM.
Thank you, Karen. Do we have any questions for Karen? Thanks again. So we'll move on to the Finance Committee. That is me. So I will continue with going over PARTA's finances first. So probably I'll point out the differences. We do have a difference on KSU revenues, and I think we've seen that, but there was a variance against budget of around $90,000. Federal capital money, you'll see a variance of 83,000. That's because that money has not yet been drawn down. It will be drawn down in June, so you'll see that switch around next month. The expenses, pretty much everything is in line. We had a financial audit that caused our professional services to go up a little bit more than expected. Fuels and lubricants, because we haven't been driving as much, I should say, are of course down. And we had an invoice for our public liability for 52,000 that should have been in January, that the invoice wasn't received, so it wasn't paid until now. So you'll see that discrepancy also. Overall, against budget this period, it was a negative 41,825. And year to date actual is about the same number, 45,084. But you're going to see a swing in those numbers coming up within the next couple of months. Nothing else really jumped out at me at that on this report. Went over the capital finance report, and really not a lot of activity. A couple of bills were paid. One was with the bus storage facility, and the other was from the training pad. Restricted funds remained over, if you see, close to $4 million in restricted funds. Net position, there wasn't a lot of changes. There were some receivables and some account payables, but everything else stayed relatively unchanged. And I'll open up, I'll ask for questions, I guess. The Kent Central Gateway, some good numbers there. If you look at the last month to this month number, last year to this year, and the same month, we had about 1,500 last year and a little bit over 7,000 this year. So it's a substantial change. And if you look at the chart, it'll tell you that we have some increases. And we're hoping that with the activity in downtown Kent, both with more activity at the hotel and more activity with events downtown, that's going to continue throughout the summer. So that's a good thing. That helps the numbers, which if you go on to the finance report, I have these out of order for what I wanted to do, but I'll cover it anyway. So the finance report, the one thing that was nice about this, and this is the A+ report, is that this is the first month this year that our cost per car was less than our revenue per car. So that was a nice little change. And it's getting close to balancing out year to year. So far this year, it's getting close to even. So that's a good thing. And the Kent Gateway Finance Report, we are current period, pretty much everything on budget. There was nothing really out of variance at all. We had a gross operating surplus of a little bit over 12,615, which brought our year-to-date surplus to 12,537. And that's a big or good change compared to what we saw last year. I am able to answer any questions, and if not, I will turn over my left shoulder and throw it her way. Anybody have any questions on finances? Thank you so much. Both of the operations and personnel committees did not meet, and we will move on to old business. Any old business that needs to be brought in front of the board? Hearing none, we will go to new business. And at this point, we'll have a presentation on RLB. Next slide.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Okay. I'll share my screen. Okay. So I just wanted to take a few minutes and briefly update you on where we're at with the negotiations with ROB Phoenix and also with the Kent City Health Department. Last time we spoke was in January. And since that time, we've made a little bit of progress on our goal of filling the spaces and getting lease agreements secured. You'll recall that we have 3 agreements in play at the Gateway that are affected by the decisions that we make for our retail and tenant spaces and our parking services. The first is the City of Kent 50-year agreement, where we share revenue, profits and losses for the deck. This is not included in tonight's discussion, but it's always the backbone of what we do down at the Gateway. The second agreement is the ROB Phoenix 10-year master tenant lease agreement. It does have an optional 10-year renewal, which, as we discussed in January, is not going to happen. And then we have the 2020 agreement with the Kent City Health Department, which is also a 10-year agreement for the second floor spaces at the Gateway. And there's a 10-year renewal option for that contract as well. There we go. So the current status of the ROB Phoenix lease agreement is that we are in a 10-year, the first 10-year period. They're under contract through 2024. In 2021, which is year 7, they've paid us $16,000. They owe a total of $32,000. And so we expect to receive $8,000 per quarter, which leaves the remaining $16,000 for the third and fourth quarters in 2021 remaining to be paid. And then for the term of the full 10 years, the last 3 years has a remaining contract value of $114,000. So the way this looks is we'll start at the top. So we're in year 7. You can see that in the red there. 2021, the base rent due to us is $32,000. This is regardless of whether they fill the spaces or not. And through this first 7-year period, you can see that we've received a cumulative amount of $140,000 through this lease agreement, and that $16,000 is remaining due this year. And the amounts that add up to the remaining $114,000 are below for years 8, 9, and 10 at $34,000 in 2022, $36,000 in 2023, and $44,000 in 2024. So ROB Phoenix's position on this is, and if you can't read the caption, it's pretty small. It says the negotiation began with each side holding firm to their original positions. So their position is that they are basically demanding release from the agreement without any monetary consideration to us. They maintain that we will benefit from the release of the agreement. And they believe this because the total rents that they collect each month will exceed the $8,000 quarterly payment that we are expecting to receive. We did have good movement when we discussed with them allowing the Kent City Health Department to lease the vacant first floor level Cutler space, which they wanted to lease to have COVID vaccine clinic. But this didn't happen in time for that to actually occur. So that is their position. Our position has been, and if you can't read the caption again, it's don't let it throw you. It's just a negotiating tactic. So, our position has been, we will release ROB from the agreement for a reasonable monetary consideration. We budgeted for $32,000. Our next 3 years were locked in. The contract does require them to pay it. We don't want to go to court. We wanted to have an amicable settlement. And so In the spirit of that desire, we propose releasing them for the consideration of $16,000 they actually owe us in 2021. When I talked to Mike and Dave about this at one of our monthly lunches, they thought that was very generous because we could have gone higher than that, but they were very clear that they wanted out and they wanted out now. And so in the spirit of that, I decided we could budget further, beyond 2022, beyond 2021, once we knew that we had the rents coming in, and it wouldn't harm us to do that. They flatly rejected this and did not counter. And so again, in the spirit of cooperation and trying to find a way to negotiate this, we countered that we needed no less than 12,000. And they rejected that. And at that point, boy, this is slow. I'm sorry, it's showing as changed on my screen, but not, here we go. So at that point, I felt like I was kind of facing a big brick wall or hitting my head against it. And this is very sensitive, excuse me. Let's give this a second to catch up. I don't know what's going on.
So they don't want to pay attention to a valid contract.
That's correct. They don't believe that they should be bound to the terms of the contract.
So they have to trust it.
I don't assign,
Boy, it doesn't want us to see
it does not
that,
want
does
us to
it?
see the brick wall.
Well, hopefully that's a good sign.
Okay, so quickly, at this point, we rejected their demand for release without monetary consideration and sent them an invoice for the third quarter. Because we can get it one way or we can get it the other. You're going to either pay it because you owe it to us and we're going to invoice you, or you are going to pay us in a lump sum so you can get out of the contract. So that's where we're at with that. In the meantime, after we had proposed the 12,000, their attorney talked to our attorney, Michelle Reese, who subbed for Justin last month. And I'm sorry, their attorney talked to another attorney at Rotzel and Andrus, not Michelle, not Justin. And they wanted Rotzel to represent them in the sale of the remaining Kent properties. But that presented a conflict of interest that they needed my permission to release them from. And I was like, well, gosh, you're not going to pay me anything and you want me to give you permission to sell downtown out. So no, sorry. And that's where we're at right now. So you want to add anything to that?
No,
That was just,
yeah, no, it was a separate real estate attorney in my office, and as Claudia mentioned, I called her immediately and laid it out for her as always, her decision and Parta's decision whether or not to waive that conflict, and the answer was no, which is okay. So we communicated that accordingly.
so that's where we're at with ROB. We haven't heard back from them. That's not unusual. June 9th isn't that long ago. It takes about a month between every discussion. And they owe us for the third quarter here in a week, and we'll see how that goes. Any questions about that at this point? We will circle back at the end if you want to just let me, I think it would be better if I finished because it's only a couple slides and there, it just changed. Okay, so moving on to the Kent City Health Department. The health department leases the second floor spaces of the Gateway. You can see their sign there at the top. And they moved in August of 2020. In April of 2021, we began assessing them a higher monthly rent and added a maintenance fee because we had some months to track cleaning and sanitizing expenses and goods and materials that we were providing active costs for. And now that total lump sum payment is $2,013 for the next year, beginning April 1st. And they have agreed, and we signed the addendum that was prepared to allow them to lease the former vacant Cutler space for a 1-year period. Because of COVID, that date has not yet been determined. But when they do move in for the next year, they'll pay monthly rent plus maintenance fees of $1,925 each month. And this is the last slide, basically. So my goal, at least, is to keep all the retail spaces filled with responsible tenants and to generate predictable and stable revenue. I would welcome your thoughts on the ROB contract situation. During this first year with the Kent Health Department, we'll do what we can to determine whether they're going to want to stay, whether that's the best scenario. What could we put in there as the economy reopens? What would the marketability be? And then consider all contract options at that point. So that concludes my presentation. Are there questions or comments? Frank?
So is RLB a collectible company? Are they in bankruptcy? What's the scoop?
The scoop is that Ron Burbick passed away. He was devoted to investing in downtown Kent. His successors, the family members, aren't interested, and they want out of everything.
Are we talking about local people here? I mean, you said-
Well, they're
I mean, not,
local, yes.
what is the total obligation on the lease that's left to be paid?
Well, as I just said, 16,000 for 2021 and total of 114,000 for the next 3 years.
I had a situation with my tenant who left to go back to Italy. So I went through the same scenario for a different reason. But I offered to take a buyout of 50% of 100 grand, basically. But then at the end, I decided not to take it. And their attorney, of course, says, they could not pay you. You can sue somebody in Italy. That's a bad idea. But they are honoring the contract. It's a fairly large corporation. But it seems to me that why would you let them? I thought your offer of 12,000 was very reasonable, and they just don't want to pay.
They just feel entitled to walk away without any ramifications.
What is our recourse? What are our
Well-
next steps or options?
Well, that's where I think we need to decide how hard and how much money we want to spend to push. I don't know if they're just being bullies about it, but it would be ridiculous to spend thousands of dollars to get thousands of dollars. But in the end, that will be a conversation. I wanted to update the board at that. If we get to a point where it's just, we have to make that decision, I want the board to be behind me on that if we decide to fight or if we decide not to fight and take the loss.
Oh, but it's 100 grand, right?
Well, by contract, it's 100 grand.
So
In reality, do we want to just move on and collect the rents and figure it out from here on out? That's not what I wanted 7 years ago, but could we do that? Yes. Could we move forward want to spend a year or 5 years in litigation?
if it's some company, it's not. I was thinking it was in Phoenix or something. I don't know what I was thinking.
No, they're not bankrupt. There's no bankruptcy. This is not the case.
For 100 grand, you could spend some money. I certainly wouldn't want to spend 40,000 in litigation, but we're local, they're local.
Well, if we did do litigation, I think everything's off the table. We go for the whole 10 years. But I had hoped to avoid that because suing people really isn't my job and what I
No,
want to
I
do.
don't understand that.
Well, then maybe they need to do that, but that will be a conversation with Michelle and Justin and the board. if we want to do that.
Businesses that are there now. Does RLB Phoenix have contracts that will extend through 2024 with them?
The contracts, yes, they have contracts that extend through 2024 with one exception, and one is 2025 because of a lending issue. So we know that for the next 3 years, we have people under contract. After that, we don't know.
They've suggested that we would do well if we were to take over those contracts. Is that a true statement?
I believe it's a true statement. We've been asking about the visitor center, which ROB Phoenix paid for. So they're not going to continue paying for it, but they haven't given us an answer as to whether they have made alternative arrangements for that. There's 2 salons and the Chamber of Commerce.
When is their next payment due us?
July 1st.
That's for $8,000.
Yes.
If you took them to court, could you then get your expenses, the legal expenses on top of it?
It's very, yeah.
The question was, if we took them to court, could we recover our legal expenses? And Justin said it's very difficult to do that.
For a standard breach of contract, usually not. Just saying,
You're asking an attorney that.
Ask the banker, contracts are useless.
It sounds like it. Convince me differently.
Well, I mean, the problem is, it's what you guys are identifying is the cost benefit, right? So in order to go and enforce your remedies under the contract, you need to have a court or an arbitration or some type of independent party, right? That costs money and time. And so, what's that?
For honorable people.
Well, right, I understand.
Okay. I don't know.
Morgan?
Is there anyone in this room or anyone well, who knows the feeling? I know there's seismic things going on.
Yes.
And so I expect that, there's been loss, there's been, lots of changes. And yet, is there anyone who could have a personal conversation? Like off the record?
We had,
Yeah.
those were had.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously in your power to have all those conversations. I just wasn't sure if there was something that would be helpful.
We thought we did, when they hadn't paid for the second quarter and it was late and they were asking us to release them. I said, we're not even going to talk until you come out of, overdue payment. So literally came in the next Monday with a check for the second quarter. And I thought, okay, we're making progress here. And it's just been no, no, no ever since.
Oh, perfect.
That would be a threat. It'd be fun. And just for
Claudia?
the record, this is probably just a conversation for this room that shouldn't. be
Well,
on-
it will be, it's public. I'm not concerned about saying that this is the position, this is where it is. I talked to Justin about anything I shouldn't say.
Sunshine is good.
We're just looking for reasonable and I think that was a very fair offer. And if they want to push it, then I guess we can do that.
Claudia, do we know how they're doing with their other properties?
I have heard, they're trying to find an attorney to represent them that won't be from Rotzel. So I have heard through the city of Kent, that they had a buyer that they were taking the approach of assessing each potential buyer one at a time and deciding yes or no, not to evaluate them as against each other. So I've heard that they had one that they evaluated and dismissed or either walked away. I don't know. But they are trying to sell the Acorn Alley and any of the properties that Ron constructed. Acorn Alley, the old hotel, Acorn Alley 2.
I just wondered how profitable they are at the moment vis-a-vis empty spaces. Do they have tenants behind on rent?
I've only heard that they are looking to increase rents, but I don't know anything specific. And looking to sell to a potentially not local entity.
Sounds to me like they want to cash out.
Yes, the family is just pulling up roots and they don't want to be involved.
I don't know bad of a neighbor you want to be, but can we file something against them that makes their sale difficult? Like in my world.
To ask Michelle that question, but it does ring a bell that was an option. Okay.
So what I would generally say, so, you know, the executive session versus open session, I understand there's a line there.
Sure.
To the extent that there's legal options and the board decision has to be made about how to pursue the available options, I would probably prefer that to be an executive session so that the board can hear candid. I'm, as I was commenting here, we're a little bit guarded because of the open session nature of it,
So we can do that under, because it's not the purchase of real estate.
pending or threatened litigation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's not go any further down that road then. My plan was not to have litigation. That's been my intent all along, and that's been our focus, and that is still where I want to land. So I'm hopeful that they will see reason and pay us what it was for 2021.
Are you looking for a consensus from the board?
I don't think tonight, because again, if we are going to examine further legal possibilities, I think we would do that at another time. Once our attorney has a chance to get their response from our counter of, you got to pay us something. And then,
It's not due till first.
Right.
So that if a
We
payment
wait.
Sure.
first, we would have to
And
try to negotiate further. If no, then start looking right now.
correct. They're not out of contract right now. They're not violating anything right now.
They're not in default right
They're not right now.
now. I can't say any reason or reason. I mean, I don't want to do anything, but I don't see why.
Okay.
They have enough money. If it's sold to somebody else, you just, I mean, file a lawsuit. Have a lawsuit against them when they cash out. That was the sale.
Yeah, so let's not go down that road any further, since that we don't know that we're going to take any legal action at all. We're just talking and updating. So any other questions? Okay, thanks.
Very good.
Thank
Claudia, for the updates.
Fun parts of the job.
Most definitely. Do we have anything else that'll fall under new business before we? Hearing none, we'll move on. We do have two resolutions on the agenda tonight. First one being 2021-0601. Resolution by the Portage Area Regional Transportation Authority Board of Trustees authorizing the general manager or her designee to negotiate, enter into, and sign an agreement with Metis Construction Services for the construction of a fitness studio, mezzanine exercise room, and storage space in the bus storage facility. Can I ask for a motion?
I'd like to make that. What do you say? You have to use it. Okay, as long as it's
So
on
is that a
that.
motion that I hear from that word?
I'll
Right
make
there? Okay,
a
so we have a first, second.
Well,
Thank you.
second,
Thank you. Any discussion at this point, other than the fact that we want to know if it's open to the board members, I think was the question. Any discussion?
I just think that it's really wonderful that PARTA is so committed to keeping their employees healthy. That is a sign of a healthy organization.
That's all Kelly. Especially with this kind of circumstance, they're all in stress.
Right.
Right.
Most definitely. All right, so this point we'll ask for a roll call, please, Marcia.
Mr. Lewis?
Should we
Yes.
not have discussion on this?
What's that?
Should we not have discussion on
I
this?
asked, I'm sorry.
I'm
That's okay. We'll wait for a second and we'll have any further discussion at this point.
I have nothing to discuss.
I'm sorry, I thought, I maybe missed that. Then we're ready to go to roll call here, no discussion.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Davison?
Yes.
Mr. Childers?
Yes.
Mr. Brockett?
yes,
Ms. Biergard? Ms. Beck?
Yes.
Mr. Mansfield?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Ms. Wise?
yes.
Mr. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Tipton?
Yes.
Thank you, Marcia. Motion is approved. We have another on the agenda tonight, 2021-0602, a resolution by the Portage Area Regional Transportation Authority, Board of Trustees authorizing the general manager or her designee, and resolution 2021-0503, increasing the cost of 1.8 million to the not to exceed cost for production purchase of 3 CNG trolley buses, optional equipment, spare parts from Transportation Equipment Sales Corporation. Can I have a motion, please?
Moved.
Thank you, Debbie. A second? Second. Thank you, Marvin. And at this point, any discussion?
Questions?
That's fine. It was reminded, I was reminded that that was reviewed by the Finance Committee and moved on to the board.
You have an agenda, of course, under the,
This is it.
If we've agreed to 1 point,
There'll be a discussion of whether we should have next meeting.
That was in the report.
on.
I'd like to see that.
Did you have a question for my board report in the explanation, or do you want more detail?
when we said that it was 1.8, but you want to move it 200,000.
Correct, yes.
Why do we have to increase it like that?
When we did the RFP and we compared what we call the white box bus from both companies, we were unable to include the removable trolley windows from the spec because Gillig doesn't produce a trolley with removable windows. In the communication of that, that happened a little late after we had already gone to the board and determined that to build the trolley bus under the Tesco contract with the removable windows was going to cost about $30,000 more per bus that we hadn't accounted for in our original contingency because normal bus builds include windows. This was different. We had to compare apples to apples, but we didn't translate that clearly in the bus, because when you start building the bus on paper, it's a different situation. So we undershot a little bit. We thought about bringing forward a resolution for 90,000, but we also have never built trolleys before, and we've never built anything in a post-COVID world. In order to avoid delays, you've heard about construction delays and costs and parts. We want these as soon as possible. If there are any unplanned contingent expenses, I want to be able to cover those without having to come back to the board at any given month. So I don't expect that we'll spend 2 million, but we have a little more breathing room if something comes up.
I remember the windows one.
Great, okay. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Marshall, roll call, please.
Mr. Childers,
Yes.
Mr. Brockett,
Yes,
Ms. Beauregard, Ms. Beck,
Yes.
Mr. Mansfield,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Ms. Wise,
Yes.
Mr. Vitale,
Yes.
Ms. Tipton,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes.
Ms. Davison.
Yes.
Thank you, Marshall.
That's nice. I would want to see what we're at on July 1st.
Very fair.
Yeah.
All right, so we were not going to have an executive session. I had no knowledge of that, so I would this time ask for an adjournment motion, please.
So moved.
I have First, second, thank you very much. We stand adjourned. One more thing before we leave. This is, July 22nd is our next meeting. It's in person. At this point, it will be in person only because the state has not given any continuation to their rules due to COVID. What that means is we will probably, oh, that's good. We will probably offer it like we did here. However,